Hi folks, welcome to We the People. I'm Dave Gallus, your host, and we've had a series going on and it's all about prepping for elections and waking people up to what's going on, the threat of socialism. Today we have a very special guest. We have Karen Bedoni. She's running for New Mexico governor. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Good strong handshake too. I like this lady already. So Karen, I believe you ran for CD3, U.S. Congressional District 3 in the U.S. Congress, and you weren't successful in that, but you never gave up the fight. Now you're running for governor.
Yes.
So I feel your power, and Native American, this is great. The first Native American, full-blooded Native American running for New Mexico governor.
Right.
Thank you for running. And so let's tell the people, let's find out about your background. Let's have some history.
Right. Well, my name is Karen Bedoni, and I have 8 children, a mother first and foremost, and I'm a wife as well. And I am a Navajo Native American, but I identify as an American, Native American conservative woman. And so that's exactly who I am. And my background is business. We've done, I guess, fighting the good fight out of socialism, trying to raise a family, put food on the table. And I've gone through all the policies that, the legislation makes in different arenas, the Navajo Nation as well as, state and then federal. So all those policies that come down the pipeline land right on top of us. And
imagine you have many more policies that we have to deal with, we Anglos have to deal with, or anybody that's not in the nation. So you've got it twice as bad. So
right, and those layer bits of policy have created a very communistic atmosphere. And so socialism has been heavily rampant. So when we lived there on the reservation, we lost all sense of freedom. So indoctrination is heavy, dependence on the government is heavy, and we can't even ask, I don't have water to my home. So we're water haulers. So we haul water.
You can't have water to your home?
No, we don't have the pipeline, and they say it's not economically sound to run pipeline to all the families.
Who is they?
The policymakers. This is why I've gotten into politics, because they make decisions based on what they think is best for all, but the ones that are suffering, truly, we don't have a voice. And so I've kind of rose up out of the ashes of socialism, and I battled it with capitalism and also the will to be independent and to love my family. And that's when I really discovered the power of the Constitution and what it meant to me.
Wow. And
so using the Second Amendment to protect my daughters, because we are missing, murdered, and Indigenous women is a real thing. We do lose girls all the time, so we are heavily, we embraced the Second Amendment wholeheartedly.
I got to tell the folks, I said, I've seen your commercial, and it's fantastic. I think you've got a 30-06. You tossed it to one daughter. Another daughter's racking a 12 gauge, and your youngest is shooting an arrow into a hay bale. I think it's like, this is the kind of lady I want fighting for me in the state. So
yes,
yeah. So you've got a lot of battles to wage. You've already battled a lot. So. You're married, I take it?
Yes, I'm happily married to a wonderful husband.
That's good. You always need the family support, and you even have your daughter here in the audience.
Yes.
Along with your campaign manager, Crystal and Abby, and it's nice to have them here.
Right.
So your husband has a plumbing business?
Correct. We started a company called Copper Penny, and we launched it because we needed to find a service that was conducive to the people, because we're in poverty, but no one could afford plumbing services. So we didn't start this company to make a lot of money, but it was just our tagline became Plumbing the Navajo Nation. So we go into houses that infrastructure is now crumbling, and because infrastructure is so not enough of it, we're seeing families between 3 to 5 different family units in one household.
Wow.
So when COVID hit, it ballooned. And so it exhausted the septic systems and the plumbing of all these houses. So we've been on the ground fighting the good fight through this whole COVID, pandemic. Right. And at the same time, I've been fighting for freedom. But I haven't really explained to you why I came out of the reservation to start fighting for New Mexico. Okay. So that it's morphed into something much more bigger.
That's usually the way we get pushed into things, right? Yeah. Drug along, kicking and screaming, and now you can't stop. I know how you feel. Right. Well, you also are a businesswoman. You had a florist business, or have a florist business.
Yeah, we had 2. One was off the reservation, and we also had we were in the funeral division because Again, socialism, medical for all was a big deal. About a couple years ago, they were trying to socialize all of medical care across the United States. But as Native Americans, we live with socialized health care. It's never enough. It's a very mediocre system. They're never curing anything. They're only medicating us and keeping us in the game. And so we're watching the funeral rates happen. And so I started to plot the death rate, and I was actually tracking all of this, and I realized that sick Indian is worth more than a healthy one, and a dead one is worth more than a live one. And those same policies and parameters of funeral businesses, I applied to the state of New Mexico, and I realized they're doing the same thing. A sick American is worth more than a healthy American,
Wow.
and a dead American is lucrative, and it makes more money than a live one.
Because it's government subsidizes?
Yes, and
Okay.
yes. And so as those policies, I started to study and understand from a micro point of view what was around me in my community, then I was able to apply that on the outside. And that's where the big, epiphany and an immense amount of awakening basically happened. And I realized that all the policies that they have placed on Indian country since the 1800s, we were the experiment, and now America is the new application. So I left the reservation to fight for America and to fight for Americans, because America hasn't endured what I have gone through, what my people have gone through. But it's coming for you, and I'm scared for you. I'm scared for all of us, because we're at the bottom of the barrel. So if America goes down further, then that means Native American country goes down even further.
You know, some people think that Native Americans shun Anglos, shun non-Native Americans, but I don't feel that with you at all. I feel that you're fighting for all Americans.
Correct.
You're the first Americans.
Right.
And hopefully you'll be the greatest Americans to help us out of this mess that we're in.
Right, and well, on that aspect, my grandfathers both were served. My grandpa was served in the Army during World War II. He was not a code talker, but he worked in the engineering area, and he helped build bridges. But we also have the whole code talker era, people that I did know that were actual code talkers that weren't allowed to talk about it because it was, classified for so long. But when we started to ask questions, when they would come to our schools, we'd say, "Why did you serve?" Because we had been taught the victimization mentality. Yeah. They took our land, they did all this to us. But my grandpa never felt that way, and he instilled patriotism to me very, very early, at an early age. So every time we did our prayer ceremonies, he always brought out the American flag first. Then he laid his medicine and instruments upon it. And that's how he started his prayer systems. He says America is the biggest frontier, but it's also the greatest country in the world, and we knew that. And Native Americans know, and we have the highest military enlistment than all minorities combined, Navajo Nation themselves.
Wow.
Everyone has from their family a soldier coming out of their home. And if you go into some hogans, you'll see the whole walls lined with portraits of servicemen and women that came from their families.
Wow.
So knowing that, we know that if we lose America, we lose everything. So we got into the war. And so, we are Americans, and we believe what it is to be patriotic. Well, so we're here for you.
You know, when I grew up as a kid, we always had a 6-gun on our belt, a little plastic gun, and it'd be cowboys and Indians. And of course, they told us back then, this was in the 50s, the Indians were bad and the cowboys were good. But as I grew up, I understood that was not true. And I started getting into metaphysics, and when I did, it was opening up a whole new idea of the enlightenment of the Native American, and at the same time, that movie, Dances with Wolves, came out, so people were understanding more that Native Americans are people to be really, it's a resource of valuable information. And if you have a culture that doesn't have a written history, that it's handed down by word of mouth, I mean, that's saying something about the family structure.
Correct.
So that's amazing to me.
Right. Well, and the whole Christianity part of it is what my grandpa would tell me is inside of our teepees when we do prayer services, there was the 13 poles, the 12 apostles, and that's Jesus as the main pole.
Oh, I didn't
So
know
we
that.
have the Bible inside of our culture, and it's funny because they want to separate the two and they want to fight about it. But the thing about it is when people talk about Scripture, I can relate indefinitely, and I can tell you exactly why. And so it falls into a beautiful dance of understanding.
I'd really like to attend one.
And so when we talk about, there's a very holistic prayer that we pray. It's a very simple prayer, and it's about walking in beauty. And if you look at Navajo culture, beauty above me, beauty below me, Beauty in front of me, beauty behind me, beauty all around me. And it's a simple prayer. And as I was praying this prayer when I was a child, I didn't really think about it. But now when I think about it, I'm thinking they're talking about God. And when you go into it, and I had a very amazing conversation with a physicist, scientist in Los Alamos, and he was asking me about my religion and how do I fit science into this whole thing.
Right.
But if you scope down to the very basics of matter and who we are and our cells and stuff that they don't touch, well, how does that keep us from falling apart? We're not just oozing bag of bones, and stuff, and what keeps us us. And so it's God, and that's the spirit that we're talking about, that beauty. It's with us and through us and all around us. That's why sin is impossible to hide, because God is with you. He's in everything, in every matter. So when we understand that thinking, then all things are connected and we can make an impact. So that takes me back to, what can Karen Bedoni really do? Can she really win governor? Can she really do this? But through the power of God and through understanding this energy, I believe that it's a calling. And so I decided to stand up and just let it take me.
And yet, with your gentle nature and your belief in God, you're still a warrior. And I've had the picture of Geronimo with other braves there, horseback with rifles,
right.
And it says, Homeland Security. I love that picture. You
right.
folks are fighters, and that's one thing that our Republican Party doesn't seem to have, which we need to have. Absolutely, right. The fighting spirit, not physically fighting unless it comes to that, but
right.
Stand up for our rights, and that is so needed. So right. I hear that in you.
Right. Well, my Native American, my Navajo name, my traditional name, actually means the one who goes to war and then returns. But I wasn't allowed to enlist in the military. Grandpa said no, because I was ready. I was getting ready to go, and my mom, and then they jerked me back out of that line. They said, no, you're not going, and I didn't understand it. But my name, and all this stuff, because my cousins had nice, cute names like, Little Feather and whatever. Yeah. But when I got that name, it just broke my heart, because I'm like, why do I have such a difficult name? It was tragic for me to understand. But now that I've grown up and I have that name, I'm going to carry it. So this is what I'm into, that fight. But yes, the Republican Party needs us. We bring the backbone to the party, if you want to say something like that.
Absolutely.
But also the leather and the skin that you want to also say.
Yes.
But I'm also a warrior about truth. I will say what needs to be said, and I will give it to who needs to be put in their place. And as a mother and as a female society where I come from, the women are the ones that run the household, but we will let our men lead because we're busy with the children and stuff. Okay. But when tragic things happen and terrible things, even death, who do you call? You call your mom. You call the women. Oh, yeah. We feed the people. We also raise a nation, and upon our labor pains, we have replenished the population. So we are the largest tribe in the country.
Wow, I want to learn a lot more about the Navajo Nation. So, okay, let's get into some of your,
Yes.
We've shown that you're a Christian. Okay, being a Christian, how do you believe about abortion?
I don't believe in abortion. I'm a pro-lifer. I believe that life is given to us through God himself, and the conception part of it. But we are in a messy modern world right now where we're fighting a linear fight against the Supreme Court with Roe versus Wade and all the different legislations that are coming down the pipe from the left. And they're promoting us. We're the baby-killing state of the country, and it's heartbreaking. But we need to heal the nation, and so we need to also be forgiven for our sins. So we have to fight, and we can't just fight in the linear pattern anymore. As I explained before when we were talking, is being pro-life, you have to fight for life from all different angles.
Sure.
So I'm going to use a toolbox the governor has to basically save 98% of the babies, and then I'm going to go to war for 2%. We're going to take a break, but I do understand that the Supreme Court is now going to take up the issue of abortion. Yes.
Amen.
Yes,
I hope it, you know what, keep praying, folks. So we'll be right back. So stay tuned, folks. Karen is coming back, and we'll have a whole lot more of information. See you in a minute.
Living with eczema can be distressing, and the condition is on the rise. 3A Research in Las Cruces is conducting an 8-week clinical trial and seeking participants ages 12 and older for a clinical research study on an investigational drug for eczema. Study-related exam and procedures at no cost. Compensation for time and travel up to $450 will be provided. Call us at 575-288-1646 to see if you qualify.
If your loved one has passed away due to COVID-19, pay close attention to this message. You could be entitled to a death benefit of over $300,000. The U.S. government has set up a fund to pay families relief if they've lost a loved one due to COVID-19. The compensation includes a death benefit and lost wages benefit. Time is limited, so we urge you to make a free phone call right now. There's no cost to you for this claim. That's 866-372-3669.
Hi, I'm Ray Bamberg with Here on Earth. I would like to invite you for a free hearing evaluation to our office. We've been here in southern New Mexico for 34 years helping people hear better.
Do you suffer from rashes, dryness, flakiness, and thickness to the skin? 3A Research is conducting a trial of an investigational drug on plaque psoriasis. Subjects must be 18 years of age or older. This is an 8-week study. We will compensate you for your time and travel up to $225.
Enrolling participants now in Las Cruces. Contact our office at 575-288-1646 or visit our Facebook page at 3A Research or our website 3asites.com.
Hi folks, welcome back to We the People. Our special guest is Karen Bedoni. She's running for New Mexico governor. Powerful Native American, first full-blooded Native American, is going to stand up for New Mexico. Karen, we talked about a lot of issues. The last one was abortion. You covered that one. How about immigration and how about our southern border?
Wow, we're going to have to do something about this border. In my belief system, you have a home, and we live in the Hogans. When you enter the doorway, you go around, and there's a lot of, guidelines in someone's home, and it's out of respect that you respect those guidelines.
Okay.
Then you take your seat, and if you don't like the guidelines or the homeowners, what they expect of you, then you keep continuing, and then you head out the doorway.
Oh.
I believe immigration needs to be that way. We don't need to be taking in people and supporting them because New Mexico is broke right now. We are in the red. We don't have the resources to do it, and it'd be more cost effective to just finish the wall. But we need a very organized, very protective way of doing immigration, so it's safety for all. And my biggest concern is the children that are being trafficked across and being rented, out just to claim asylum, and then they're let go. I believe I read about a farmer that found 2 little girls in his farm.
Yep.
So this
Luckily they were alive.
Right, and this is ridiculous. And so we need to actually battle this issue, and it's going to be one of the fastest issues that we will, when I'm elected governor, I'm going to, get it done really quickly because we cannot wait. Because every day it's just a flooding number, and it's more deficit and more debt. But I believe if you want to become a citizen of the United States, you need to actually do the work. Because citizenship wasn't just granted because I was born here. It took until 1924 for Calvin Coolidge to sign the Indian Civilization Act. Jeez. We weren't even Americans yet, so we had to wait. So, and we were here on this, Mother Earth.
Americans.
We were the first Americans, but we also had to wait and go through those processes.
And you did.
Yes, and so immigration is very important to me. We need to get that under control and handled. And we also need to push the federal government to work for us and with us as we, send our representatives up there to work for us and with us. But if we have to, as a state, this is the last battlefield, and we have to stand up for our rights and tell them exactly how we want our state to function and have them quit making these crazy decisions for us.
I know. It's funny. Before our present governor was in office, we had Susana Martinez, a Republican. She had the National Guard on the border.
Right.
And 1 month after Lujan Grisham got in office, the National Guard was taken off the border, as well as the 6 other states that sent National Guard troops down to help us with our border control. She pulled them off and said, "You're not needed." Now our border is wide open.
Right.
Joe Biden now has stopped the wall construction. This is ridiculous. We have people coming across the border in thousands, in droves, And they have diseases, and they have criminals, they have terrorists that are coming across. This is crazy.
Right, there's no filtration system for the safety of the people.
You got to get in
Right.
to protect New Mexico.
And all the material that was already purchased by the federal government is just sitting there. So most of it was paid for. We just got to finish the labor part of it and get it done.
Well, I heard there is some work construction going on. I don't know if it's in New Mexico, but it certainly should be. You had mentioned something about closing off New Mexico, and then why don't we send them to California, where Gavin Newsom can take care of them?
Yes. Oh, I think we want a more strict policy because we have to get our economics back online right now.
Sure.
And in order to do that, you have to stop the hemorrhaging and the bleeding basically effect, and also the infection part of it. So when you do that, you have to clean a wound and then you bandage it. So what I'm looking at the border wall is we have to make it very stringent, it's more difficult to get in through New Mexico. And so Texas, I know they're tough, and then Arizona's going to be, pretty tough. But if it's weak on California, then they can all start to become California's issue. But so these states need to work together as well. These governors are different. I know we have, Republican governors and the Democratic governors. Sure. But there's governors that aren't working together. But I understand there's an association they all belong to, but they're not getting it done together as a unit to move America forward.
Right. So it's working together. Mm-hmm. I hear you. Well, how about agriculture? I mean, New Mexico is big in agriculture, but we're very low in water. So how do you solve that problem?
Right. Well, I've been tracking a lot of these different, water rights and different issues that have happened even before I was born. And these are something that we have to revisit and also unravel. But we have to find new water. We can't just keep fighting over the old water and the old waterways, hoping that they would, be replenished, because we are in a drought. But I've been following different technologies, especially Israel, the country of Israel. They have had an amazing, for the past 10 years, a booming economy due to agriculture. They are growing some amazing stuff, and I've been watching them. And
they're not near water.
No, they're pulling salt water from the ocean, and they're using desalination. And I also understand that we're sitting on pockets of salt water, and because of even in Lee County and those different areas, they have dropped oil wells down, and they've hit the salt water that they couldn't really use. But if we can keep those and see where they're at, then we can start to tap this big source of water, and I think we're sitting right on top of it.
We are. When you get into governorship, Gary Esslinger, who is the head of the EBID, which is the Elephant Butte Irrigation District, I think, he's saying that there's an aquifer under the groundwater that is saline. And like you said, if Israel did it, we can do it. Desalination. I did some sailing in the Bahamas. I was drinking water that tasted a little salty, but I was never sick. So there's ways to do this.
Right, and for agriculture, and also not necessarily drinking water, but we can use it for other things.
Sure.
And it would reserve our freshwater systems, maybe just for drinking.
There you go.
Yeah, so you kind of have to figure out how you want to use it and create a plan that fits all of New Mexico, not just the corridor or the heavy populations, but and also revisit the water rights again, so that we can also settle all these disputes that have been happening for centuries.
I know. Okay. I heard about this strange, it's 30-30 land grab. What the heck is that about?
The 30 by 30 land grab, that is Biden administration's, they came out swinging, I think January 21st they signed this in. Right
after he got made.
Yes. So they want 30% of all lands in America to be put under federal control. And then by the 2030, and so it's going to come pretty fast. Oh. So
under federal control.
Yes.
Everything that the government touches gets destroyed.
Well, and they say it's to preserve and conserve, the wildlife, and they're relabeling it America the Beautiful. Oh. Well, my understanding, anything that's under federal control, especially our forests here and our mountains, they are heavily controlled by the government, but they are the most neglected pieces of property we have in New Mexico, because it's just a kindling area. They're not being cleaned, they're not being managed, they're not being worked so that we can stop forest fires, and they're just waiting for $1 million to go up in flames consistently.
Look what happened in California.
Yes.
They weren't allowed to clear the forests, and they have millions of dollars in damage. People have lost their lives. Animals, untold animals, probably species have been wiped out in California.
But they're not talking about it.
No, of course they won't, because it's not their narrative.
Right.
They don't want to look bad. No, I hear you. So this 30-30 deal has to go.
Well, and the first thing they're going to come after is private ownership, and that's one thing is the forefathers of this country wanted you to have your property and have say so, because property is probably the biggest marker of freedom. When you own something that's yours and people cannot enter and take it from you. Now the fact that 30-30 is coming through, now people's properties are all now we've lost part of our freedom. So you start thinking, what is this really? What is the narrative? And when you start digging further and you realize, wow, they're doing exactly what they did to the Native Americans, and they're going to do it to all of America.
And Native America is going to get hit the hardest with taking land away.
Yes.
No, I hear you. Well, okay, well, this blends right into the Green New Deal.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, so they've shut down the coal in northern New Mexico. I think they're going to try and destroy the coal mines so they can't be used. They did that already in another state?
In Arizona, Page, Arizona, they actually imploded and exploded the whole facility. So
and I heard there were 400 people that lost their jobs up there. They've closed down oil and gas. They don't want the XL pipeline. I mean, this is crazy stuff.
Yeah, and the narrative is extreme environmentalists. I think the environmentalists are running rampant here. They're citing the wolf, the spotted owl, all these things, but these animals do move when you start to do things.
Yeah.
As a Native American, I will tell you, the spotted owl is not tied to the tree. They will move if you're, cleaning up things, and then they'll return. And that's just the way the cycle of life is. But yes, this Green New Deal is what really kicked me in the head, because I was like, wow. So when they came for the Indian nations, this is my oral history talking, the first thing they did was conquer our food supply, and they starved us out. And then after that, they rounded us up and they stopped, movement, and then they disarm us. And all those policies that you're seeing the Green New Deal come through, it's all about stopping the economy, stopping the agriculture, the cattle. Those are all the food systems that the America feeds on. So they're going to starve us out. The second thing is they are disarming us. So the red flag laws, all these things, to the gun grabbing notions, those are all part of it. And then, the last thing is hitting our petroleum. Now it'll stop movement. So what happens when you remove petroleum, all the trucks stop. The truckers of, the highways move America. That's how you get all your products in Walmart, and that's where you go to get your groceries.
Well,
when they stop that movement, you basically cripple and hinder an entire nation.
Well, oil and gas is what supports our education.
Yes.
And New Mexico is the worst state in the union in education,
Yes.
pre-K through 12. So where's the money coming from? I mean, how can you tax people that don't even have jobs now because of COVID?
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't even make sense. But there are alternatives. I would say if they shift some of the money for research and development from oil, you got to bring coal back. And I understand there's tremendous amounts of coal that are still there in the ground that we could tap into.
75%. We've only exhausted 25% that we know of.
And I've heard the coal companies, they're as clean as can be. It's not dirty.
They even exceed the mandates that the Obama administration gave to them.
geez.
So we can scrub and it's fine. The carbon footprint that they're trying to erase is ridiculous, because we are carbon human beings. Human waste is all carbon. So unless you can figure out how we can all stop using the restroom, then you're never going to get to that point. So when we start talking about the Green New Deal, it's ridiculous.
There's alternatives. We're running out of time, but there is deep geothermal. We talked about this before the show. That's an alternative, and it's a possibility, and it's a possibility right here in New Mexico.
Yes, it is.
But I also want to say that New Mexico and Texas, if we compare the two, Texas is a booming state.
Fourth in the country, in the world.
Fourth in the world.
In the world.
In economy.
Yes.
New Mexico is a welfare state. What's the difference, folks? Texas is run by Republicans. New Mexico is run by Democrats. Okay, Texas doesn't have personal income tax, corporate income tax, and it doesn't tax Social Security.
No.
New Mexico taxes them all.
Right.
So,
even small businesses, we'd rather do business in Texas than in our own state.
Karen, you got to get elected.
Thank you. Thank you. We're trying.
Okay, well, folks, we ran out of time. Karen Bedoni, hopefully our next governor. Karen, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank
I look
you.
forward to working with you. There's been on the screen, there's been information about how folks can get in touch with you. Is there anything you want to say to the folks?
Yes, just visit me at bedonitough.com. Yes, so BEDONIETOUGH.com, and go ahead and support us. And if you can, financial support is great, and it keeps us on the ground to move and to speak and to visit as many people as we can. Thank you.
Karen Bedoni for governor. Okay, folks, see you next week.